Reem's going to be discussing whether or not Sir Keir Starmer has what it takes to overhaul our health system. So buckle up, everyone. It's time we lived the Reem.
Love that introduction. So we're told that our National Health Service is the envy of the world. We're told that when we're left waiting for GP appointments or left on waiting lists for life-saving treatment, that all we need to do is throw more of our hard-earned taxpayer cash at the broken system. So this week, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer argued that effectively we need to reform our NHS in his super radical changes. Let's take a look.
What do we value? What do we conserve, cherish and protect? The answer, a public and universal health system, free at the point of use, paid for by general taxation, the NHS.
We've heard it all before. Our NHS, supposedly, that we clap every Thursday for during the pandemic, is absolutely broken. We spend currently just below £200 billion on our National Health Service, and currently we have a record high level of 7.3 million people on waiting lists. I don't think Sir Keir Starmer has the guts to do what it really takes to fix Britain's healthcare problems, and that is effectively to get rid of the system. What we need instead is a social insurance healthcare system. When we look across the world, look at Australia, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, the Netherlands, when we look at Singapore, all of these countries that have fantastic public and private partnerships, where effectively you as an individual get to choose where you get your healthcare from, not bureaucrats in the state. Now, I think that effectively when we're looking at Sir Keir Starmer's actual answers for the NHS, what he wants to do is spend more of our hard-earned taxpayer money throwing it into a bureaucratic black hole. So, Albie, do you think that Sir Keir Starmer has what it takes to fix healthcare problems in the UK?
Well, it doesn't really matter what I think, it matters what the electorate thinks. And Keir Starmer has been 10, 20 points ahead in the polls now since Liz Truss's cluster shambles budget, which you supported at the time, I believe,
Careful.
Reem. So it doesn't really matter what I think about it. It matters what the public think about it. And clearly the public think Keir Starmer's got the answers and that Rishi doesn't.
Yeah, we're here to give our own opinion, Albie. I don't think he has.
You don't think he has? I think
I don't think he has. But Wes Streeting, the Shadow Health Secretary, has been all over the news recently. He's been doing media interview after media interview. He says he's going to reform it. But again, it's the same kind of phrases that are, been spoken about: more patient control, more whatever it is. I can't remember off the top of my head. They're talking about big reform, but that is actually better than what the Conservatives are talking about. The big reform we've seen from the Conservative government is about giving pharmacists a bit more power to prescribe things like antibiotics. It's not really the groundbreaking stuff we need, is it, really?
Do you think the problem here is that we see the NHS as this sort of sacred cow that we cannot possibly touch for the life of us? I think that fundamentally what we need is a shift in public opinion. Now, Albie's absolutely right. I mean, the public, generally speaking, are very supportive of the NHS. We saw everybody clapping with their pots and pans every Thursday.
I never did it.
I never did it.
But millions of people across the country did. And unfortunately, I think that when we're looking at the way that the NHS is being reformed in the future, what we need is fundamental reform, and Sir Keir Starmer does not have the will to do it.
A lot of the countries that you just mentioned, especially some of the European ones, are actually facing exactly the same problems with their health service that the National Health Service is facing. So is this social insurance system really the golden egg that you describe it as, or is it just another system which doesn't work very well either?
You're absolutely right. Every country in the world will face a multitude of healthcare problems, but actually the difference is under a social insurance model, you as an individual can choose where you get your healthcare from. So if you don't like one doctor, you can choose to go to another. The NHS is effectively a state monopoly. You have no choice. The government is choosing your healthcare for you, and I think that's fundamentally immoral.
And that explains why so many doctors are fleeing to Australia, using our taxpayer cash to get educated, the cheeky beggars, and then sodding off to Australia.
Cheeky,
It is, yeah. I think we should change the rules on that, actually. But, Reem, I'm wondering, is it the case that actually you'll no doubt will be inundated with tweets saying that you work for the Institute of Economic Affairs? There'll be questions of who funds you and a whole host of accusations, I dare say. But I don't reckon that if If the Labour Party cannot reform the NHS, nobody can. Because the Tories certainly can't do it, because they would receive exactly the same accusations that you will have received online, no doubt.
No, you're absolutely right. I think when it comes to the moral panic behind the privatisation of the NHS, that is a huge, huge issue. I think what we've got to remember is that this accusation has been going around since the NHS was established. I think that my colleague Christian Niemitz actually looked through the entire paperwork when it comes to news reports on the NHS. People have been panicking about the NHS being privatised since the beginning of it when it was established.
Since before we all were born.
Certainly since before we were all born, Emily.
Well, there we go.
Well, there we go.